Good afternoon. Thank you very much, Mimi, and thanks for all you do in Europe to make ARM such a success there. Well, I've got the dubious distinction of starting off after the lunch break, so hopefully everybody stays awake at least for the next 15 minutes. As Mimi mentioned, we've been fortunate from a membership and a sponsorship standpoint to be with ARM since the very first days, more than a dozen years ago or so, and it's great to see everybody here in such a large gathering. I'll be brief, just a bit of background information about CTI and why we have found regenerative medicine to be such a core focus of our research. We are a full-service clinical research organization. For those that don't know the industry well, pharma services, there are more than 1,000 companies in the pharma services space. We are one of the 15 largest. We are full service and have all the services that you see across the top third of the slide here that anyone that's working in the cell or gene therapy area would need. We have a global footprint that can accommodate anything from a first-in-man study to the largest phase 3 registration study, or anything post-approval from a registry or expanded access program with associates in more than 65 countries. We specialize in complex critically ill patient populations, and as you'll hear, we have been involved in the regenerative medicine space pretty much since the inception of the space. As highlighted, we've been doing this now for 2.5 decades. We work on behalf of more than 250 pharma, biotech, and medical device companies, as well as payers, academic institutions, and other clients that will hire us, and have been part of more than 10,000 successful projects. The end goal, obviously, for all of us that are part of this conference is moving a concept into the clinic and through the clinic to approval, and I'm really happy and proud to say that CTI has been part of more than 160 approvals, including many in the cell and gene therapy space that we'll talk about in just a moment. We believe that we have some of the industry-leading employee retention, well over 90%, which continues to be something we're quite proud of and is quite challenging in the era of early retirements and rapid turnover and a very, very challenging labor force. The global presence, as I alluded to, allows us to work in any geography, and I'm happy to say we now are doing regenerative medicine work on all the continents with the exception of Antarctica, and we'd love to be able to say we're the first company to be able to partner with somebody there if anybody has an interest in working there. But as recently as just in the last year or two, we had the first cell and gene therapy program in Saudi Arabia approved there, and continue to grow this field across the globe. One of the things for many of you when it comes to choosing a partner in the pharma services space is there are so many companies, how do I decide which ones? Obviously, we would suggest that something that's a good barometer is past success and current opportunities. Another way to look at this is third parties, including, for many of you, if you purchase something, for instance, in the automobile space, you might pay attention to J.D. Powers. If you do something in the consumer electronics, you may be looking at Consumer Reports. In our industry, there is a independent group that rates clinical research organizations. I'm proud to say that we were the highest ranked clinical research organization. This award was given in July of 2022, and we were top 5 in all categories, and the only one of the clinical research organizations to be able to say that. And we had a particular high marks for emerging companies who are sometimes challenged by working with the largest service providers in the world and getting the service that they deserve. Our offerings are broad, starting in this industry with the regulatory consulting. So I believe right now we're working on behalf of between 40 and 50 biotech and biopharma companies where we are their regulatory provider, filing pre-INDs and INDs all the way through ultimately the ultimate BLAs. But that's a service offering which we find is something that's usually a first introduction to companies. Beyond that, we have the ability to be a full-service clinical trial management team. We have full-service laboratory services. We have real-world evidence that gets involved in pricing and reimbursement. We have laboratories, and as well we have contract manufacturing that I'll speak of in just a moment. On the regulatory support side, this is particularly important to make sure that early and often you are interacting with the authorities in the regions that you're looking at developing your product. We are well known for our work in this area, as I mentioned, do a lot of work relative to fast track, orphan designations, RMATs, et cetera, and feel like the team is extremely experienced and capable to be able to do this type of work. And obviously, all the way through to approval, we're very proud that 2 of the products we've worked on for more than 10 years received FDA approval in the gene therapy space just in the last 90 days or so. As I mentioned just a moment ago, in deference to some of our sponsors and the needs that they had on the laboratory side, we have actually opened 2 new laboratories in the last 24 months with a particular emphasis on bioanalytical capabilities, safety testing, and being able to support CDMO activities, including sterility, potency, lot release specifications. This is the North American laboratory that was constructed in Cincinnati. It is CLIA certified and has full service biorepository, as well as all of the logistics and kit building activities that are particularly important in first-in-man early stage cell and gene studies. In EU, we actually are in the process of expanding our laboratory in Spain there. We, in this slide, are actually shown earlier this year where we kicked off the construction of a new laboratory to complement the one that we already have in Bilbao, Spain. This will be open in early 23 and be able to support all of the European and Middle East Africa regenerative medicine programs that we have going. As I highlighted from a standpoint of our expertise, since inception, CTI was started more than 23 years ago. More than 50% of all of the ongoing clinical projects within CTI involve cell and gene therapy. And in fact, if you look at the customers that we work for, more than 90% of them come back and give us repeat business. And that's particularly extraordinary because some of these organizations end up being acquired. Some, unfortunately, sometimes go out of business. So essentially, any of the ones that remain typically come back and have a long-term repeated set of engagement with CTI. And I think you'll agree in this era of challenges, that's something that's a bit unheard of. What you can see here is we work on behalf of more than 50 different sponsors right now. We have been involved in a large number of regenerative programs from preclinical all the way through to approval, and feel very proud of the fact that we are able to contribute as companies expand to fill gaps before they decide to add those services themselves. This is a slide actually adapted from the Alliance for Regenerative Medicine earlier this year when Janet Lambert gave her update. I believe it was at the meeting in Barcelona, talking about upcoming regulatory milestones, which ones we expected approvals in 22 and in 23. And I just wanted to highlight that several of them have come through already, so Janet was quite visionary in being able to anticipate this, but do want to highlight that CTI has been or will be part of about 40% of these approvals just in this 24-month period. So again, I think it speaks to the quality of the technologies that we're able to work with. It speaks to the quality of the people on the sponsor side that we partner with. Just to highlight, for those who aren't necessarily familiar with the pharma services, there is a model of organizations that focus purely on clinical research from a trial management standpoint. There is a focus on the other end of the spectrum of purely manufacturing, and I'm happy to say we fall in the middle. We're able to support the entire aspect of clinical research, and particularly happy when you see the companies that are listed here. We feel like we are the only mid-sized provider where you get the attention and are not one of the largest public companies in the industry. The breadth of our experience is quite wide, and you can see here it crosses basically all cell sources that you might think about, from mesenchymal cells, hepatocytes, smooth muscle cells, embryonic stem cells, progenitor cells, obviously T cells, B cells, NK cells, et cetera. And also relative to the viral vector, our experience is quite broad across all viral vectors. And route of administration is something that, as the industry has moved forward, we're quite comfortable with unusual routes of administration for ophthalmology or neurological or oncology indications, where many times we're administering the product directly to the source, which obviously has some challenges around the appropriate dose and the administration. To give you a sense, about 60% of all of our programs fall into the phase 1 and phase 2 area, and that gives us a lot of optimism that these will be moving forward into pivotal trials in the coming 24 to 36 months. We're split almost evenly between cell therapy studies and gene therapy programs that we manage, and if you look at the cell therapies, they are split also pretty evenly between autologous and allogeneic, although we are seeing an increasing number of allogeneic programs move forward. On the vector side, not surprisingly, AAV and lenti are our most common, but we also do a fair amount of work in retro as well as some of the other more unique vectors. I alluded to this on the first slide, but we announced actually at this meeting last year our first foray into the manufacturing side with the formation of Current Biologics. This is a joint venture between CTI and Cincinnati Children's Hospital. Current Biologics just recently announced its hiring of its first chief executive officer, Tom Hockley, who joined October 1st. This started out as a manufacturing joint venture that we announced is about a 40,000 square foot facility that would focus very much around viral vector and cell manufacturing. I'm happy to say with Tom's hiring and with it continuing to advance, I think what you'll see is a much larger facility based in Cincinnati that will accommodate not only the viral vector and the cell manufacturing, but also plasmid manufacturing, and also we'll be able to go from not just the emerging company proof of concept study, but all the way to registration studies and ultimately to commercialization. I would anticipate that Tom will likely be presenting on behalf of Current Biologics at upcoming ARM meetings, including this one next year. As highlighted, the joint venture came out of the need that Cincinnati Children's had a very long-term history of doing manufacturing on behalf of their own investigators. This was in the Cincinnati Children's facility and represented about a 10,000 square foot facility that was opened in 2005, 2006 timeframe. They were quite interested to expand this, contemporize it, and obviously to improve yields as well as to be able to expand capabilities, and that's why they came together with CTI. And what we look forward to doing is taking the more than 50 emerging companies that we currently work with in the cell and gene therapy space and be able to offer them an alternative manufacturing, especially ones where they're looking at some of these early stage studies where many times the largest CDMOs don't particularly give them the priority that they need. So I will finish there and actually be able to give Mimi a minute or two back. But again, we feel like CTI is the oldest, largest, most experienced clinical research organization that has the broadest group of service offerings across cell and gene manufacturing. We're very happy to be a sponsor of the Alliance for Regenerative Medicine and to work on behalf of, like I said, about 50 companies who happen to be here this week. So thank you very much.